This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo's free, and it goes to Gibbs wide.
First time we've seen them attack them, and there's Brandon! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robinson do. Taylor one, he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic! Here's Bob Williams. He's through here! And in the end, Forrest will say it doesn't matter how you play as long as you win it. Yeah!
Hello and welcome to this preview edition of Red Side of Trent as we finally come to the last international break of 2023, which means that Premier League football has returned, and that means that Forest are back in action as well with a rare Saturday 3 o'clock kickoff, which has been something of a novelty this season for us as we entertain Brighton and Hove Albion. I'm delighted to be joined by Joe from Albion Obsessed. Joe, thanks for coming on, much appreciated. And I have Adam Wicklow here as a co-host. So, Joe, Brighton this season, it's been, I don't know if a mixed bag is actually being a bit harsh given your European sort of conquest, but how have you sort of found the season as a whole so far?
I've told a lot of people that I've enjoyed the journey more than the destination. We got off to quite a rough start in Europe. I think we were taught a very quick lesson by a team that have competed in Europe for years. Athens have incredible European pedigree, and it wasn't lost on us that it would be a tough game. And they came, and it was one of the wettest nights at the Amex I've ever witnessed in my life. Honestly, I think my clothes are still wet from that night. To be honest, it was ridiculous, and the result matched my mood, which wasn't great. But I think we came back and we showed real great character in the second game against Marseille. You go 2-0 down at such a tough place to go. It's a long way back for sure. And we came back and drew that game 2-2. And then we've just beaten 4-time European champions Ajax, given they're not the same team as they have been. But we've just gone to their patch and beaten them very comfortably. And they came to the Amex, and they're probably one of the worst teams I've ever seen play us. So, and it's an incredible achievement for our football club to have beaten a team of that caliber, and to be sat second in the Europa League group stage, which I never thought would be possible.
Yeah, I like to having a horrific time this season. Full capitalising on that, yeah.
Your league form and Europa League form is like gone in two different directions. At the start, Europe not so good, now really good. Premier League really good at the start, now not so good this season at the moment. 4 draws out your last 6, losing twice and drawing the other 4. Is Europa League having an impact despite, regardless of the injuries, do you think?
I don't think it's as much the Europa League having the impact. I think the injuries, it's a thing of would those injuries have happened without that competition? Would we would have still been in the Carabao Cup. We're out of that. That's one less competition to worry about. I think it's one of those balancing acts that teams, when they get into Europe for the first time and with a squad with the majority of the players that haven't been in a European competition for the first time, it's quite a shock for them that they've got to play on a Thursday and then they're playing again on a Sunday afternoon. So it's quite a big turnaround. But yeah, I think the injuries more than just the sheer volume of games has really hurt us. You could say they go hand in hand, but the injuries happen in really unfortunate circumstances in a game. Solly March's knee goes against Man City, and he's in the form of his life. Estupiñán, we're so unlucky in those positions where, we think, okay, Estupiñán's out, we'll have Solly March fill in. That'll be absolutely fine. And he done such a good job there and has done such a good job there before as well. And then his knee goes. It's just awful luck. And I'm just hoping that some of these players come back, because the injury list is a decent starting lineup, which is really annoying.
Yeah, I was about to lead on to that. Actually, the injuries are looking pretty bleak. I mean, we saw tweet out that Mitoma, Estupiñán, March, Welbeck, Milner, and the Hood are all out confirmed. Obviously, Evan Ferguson played in midweek. He was initially meant to be ruled out. Lewis Dunk was also touch and go. So obviously, I know he didn't really go with the England setup either. So it's yeah, it's a bit bleak. I mean, I've just having a look now. I think you've had 10 injuries this season, which is 3 less than us, I will say. But I guess obviously when you're competing on multiple fronts, it's very difficult to maintain. I mean, obviously with those players out, especially, I know obviously Mitoma being the biggest one there, really. But equally, like you said, like the Hoods slotted in pretty nicely. What sort of team do you think you were able to put together for Saturday?
It just really depends on whether we get these players back and get them on the training pitch with enough time to come back into a Premier League game. I think it'll be Steele in goal, and it'll be Veltman, Igor, and Dunk as centre backs if Dunk's fit. Hopefully, I say hopefully, I don't really like this option at left back, but James Milner is probably the only option you could have, whether you slot Pascal Gross there or switch Pascal Gross to the right and put Veltman at the left. I don't want to be De Zerbi this weekend. Let's just say that.
Is Tariq Lamptey not available? Is he injured again?
He's injured again.
Oh my goodness.
Honestly, the boys made a glass.
Weirdly, I actually think like midfield and like up front is where you probably have quite a lot of depth, because like I look at midfield and you've still got like Billy Gilmore, Belabor, Gross, Lallana potentially if Lallana's fit, Hinshelwood who's coming this season. I don't know. I know he had a bit of a stinker at Villa, but then like up front you've still got Fati, Adingra, Ferguson or João Pedro. It's still quite a decent lineup to be honest. So I think it's just depth on the bench in it for you guys.
Yeah, exactly that. We've seen a lot of under 23s coming on the bench the last few games. Probably the under 23s that you would expect to be the next ones that will break through into the team. And you know, we've been blessed to have such great players come through our academy. The likes of Evan Ferguson, obviously Solly March and Lewis Dunk being two that came through the academy years ago. Hinshelwood, who you mentioned, who looks a real great talent. So we're lucky in that sense that we've got that as like a safety blanket if our injury crisis does go really, really bad. But, you know, I'm hopeful that a lot of these players are on the tail end of their recovery and they come back. You know, we're still missing Julio and Ciso, who played so well for us at the end of last season and really hit the ground running at the start of this season as well, and then goes and gets injured for 4 months or something crazy like that. So there's a lot of players to come back, and when they do, it's going to be like 6 new signings. So we can't wait for that. But yeah, until then, we've got some unbelievably tough games that De Zerbi, you know, really has to put together the best squad possible. And the fact that we're still, you know, there or thereabouts at the top end of the Premier League table is shocking to me. I thought we really would struggle. But it's a really telling few weeks now. And I think the next few weeks will define the rest of the season.
On the topic of De Zerbi, not that I'm sure you want me to flag it at all, but it does seem as if the reports from Spain seem to be quite growing in substance as well, that suggest that Real Madrid could be eyeing him up as potential replacement for Carlo Ancelotti. I mean, on the one hand, I'm sure that must make you feel very proud in the sense that you've got a manager of that caliber. On the other hand, it's sort of like... you just have like half a season of stability? Would that be nice without losing your best players or key coaching staff?
It's just the way of being a club like Brighton. You know, I'm sure you guys have had players that have been really, really good for you and have left sooner than you would have liked them to. Absolutely.
All for the right reasons, though, Joe. Normally they're guff.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, obviously we'd like them to stay a little bit longer, but you know, there's a little bit of a reality check that comes in as to we know who we are, we know how we're looked at in the football pyramid, and until there's a batch of players that say, actually, no, we really like what we're doing at Brighton here. We want to build on this and stay for a good few seasons. Like, I think that change is starting to happen. You see the likes of Mitoma signing a massive deal, Evan Ferguson signing a huge deal as well, and that's huge, huge statement for us to hopefully keep hold of these players. And I really hope that those deals aren't just signed so we can get a huge fee for them next summer, because, as you say, as a fan, it's heartbreaking. You know, we've seen such unbelievable players over the last 18 months play for our football club, and we're so lucky. But now we're left with, you know, still really good players, but huge holes. Moises Caicedo, we haven't replaced him. Alexis McAllister, these are two players that, you know, you really don't come by that often, especially for a club like us. So it's a massive miss. And, you know, if De Zerbi leaves, it would leave another huge thing for our board to react and bring in someone that can take this club to the next level that our owners clearly want to go to. So yeah, it's a really difficult thing to see. But I hope that De Zerbi has a little bit more about him and wants to stay with Brighton for a little bit longer. And, you know, but then, you know, he backs himself. He's Italian. He's got that, you know, arrogance about him that he wants to be the very best. So if Real Madrid come calling, who are we to say, sorry, Mr. De Zerbi, no, you're not going there? Absolutely. You would. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I think it's a different situation to Graham Potter, because I think even Brighton fans thought, yeah, he's got a really good thing going at Brighton, but is he ready for that next step? And it was clear very, very quickly that he wasn't ready for that. But I think De Zerbi's different, and if he goes to an elite club, I think he will do incredibly well.
How has it been? Obviously, you mentioned about not replacing Moises Caicedo and James Milner, Alexis McAllister. Sorry,
I wish we could replace James Milner.
Yeah, McAllister and Caicedo. That's quite like a big hole to fill, because there's like two big players, especially in like the center of the park. How has that been for you guys? What's been like the midfield kind of combination that has been tried and tested, and maybe what you think might be the best? I had a look at, because like my family's come from Poland, I'm always interested in seeing what Polish players are like. And I know you guys shopped in that market, but Jacob Moda got a huge injury, but I've seen that he was back on the bench for the game against Sheffield United. So I'm sure hopefully he'll come back into the mix at some point. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that area of the pitch for you?
I think it's absolutely fine going forwards. I've got no issues with what we have in terms of creativity in the middle of the park. It's, you know, it's clear to see that we're shipping goals for fun at the moment, and we're really struggling to keep a clean sheet in the league. And if you look back to last season as to the job Moises Caicedo done defensively for us, he would mop up every single mistake, you know, 99% of the time. And you miss that, how difficult it is to come across a midfielder like him, a number 6 like him. There aren't many of those in world football. You saw Liverpool struggle to get one in, and you know they come at a huge price, and it's clear to see that with his transfer fee. And you know, when you ask Baliba to come in at 19 years old to hopefully do the same job, it's a big ask. And you know, we've been lucky with the players that we've brought through. You know, Moises Caicedo was completely unknown to us 18 months ago, really. You know, he was a player that was on the fringe of the squad, out on loan in Belgium, comes back in because we've got an injury crisis, and then hits the ground running. You can't expect that to happen all the time. And as I say, we've been really lucky. I would like our owners to dip into the market in January, but then the January market is unbelievably tough, and we're no strangers to that. So it's the defensive capabilities we lack in midfield that are leaving our back line so unbelievably vulnerable. And it's clear to see with how many goals we're shipping.
Yeah, I've just been having a little scan through results. I mean, on the face of it, with the Villa sides, which obviously I think you can kind of put down to a freak result in context.
Yeah, no, I have no idea what happened there, mate. I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
bizarre. I remember watching that. Like, what is going on? Like, it's just one of those where everything they touch turns to gold, and you can't really do a lot about it. Weirdly, it's one of those sort of defies all logic. But obviously, you considered twice at home to Liverpool. That's not particularly out of the ordinary. Two
Yeah.
at City, again, not particularly out of the ordinary. But I'd be more concerned about if you look at the last three results. Obviously, 3-1 all draws against Fulham, Sheffield United, and Everton. All three of those teams are in the bottom five in the Premier League at the minute, and even before Everton's induction, they're in that sort of point. So, is it a case of these teams are just basically just flooding their own box and hitting you on the counter, or is there something else that's maybe causing you not to sort of beat the teams that maybe should be looking to beat, especially at home?
Yeah, I think the Sheffield United game that turned on its head as soon as the red card happened. And suddenly I said in my podcast, as soon as that red card happens, Sheffield United suddenly turn into a competent Premier League team. I don't understand how that happens. That shift of mentality, that shift of momentum. But obviously, with one extra player, I think we were lucky not to lose that game. I think Sheffield United could have easily come on and beat us there. But before that red card, we were controlling the game, no problem. I think we would have got a second goal, and I think we would have gone on to win that game quite comfortably. The Fulham game, again, I don't want to blame our shortcomings on officiating, but the player who scored their equaliser shouldn't have been on the pitch. It was pretty much GBH against Pascal Gross from Polina. He should have been down the police station rather than having a red card. So, all of these things that factor into would that have happened? Would this have happened? I don't know, but I don't want to be that guy that blames the referees for everything. It's clear to see that we're not scoring goals and killing games when we should do. And it's a big problem, especially against the teams that. And I don't want to sit here and be that guy and says the teams that we should be beating, but the teams that you would think that we would have a better chance of getting all 3 points from.
I just wanted to ask you, Joe, on a couple of players who have kind of look quite bright. Adingra, who came back on loan, was he in the Belgian league, I think.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
USG.
Like, what an emergency he's been, because I bet you a lot of people have seen him and gone, oh, Brighton have discovered this new player when he was actually been there for a little while. Obviously, the coup of getting Ansu Fati on loan and João Pedro from Watford has been what seems like great business for you guys, especially at the top end of the field. What have you made of each of them guys so far this season?
Yeah, firstly, Simon Adingra is another one of those wingers that we haven't really seen at our football club. A winger that just picks the ball up and drives at teams. I think we were missing that since Anthony Knockaert left. I think Jose Izquierdo was close to that, but his injury problems were insane. But then when Karim Matoma came through last season, we were like, what is this winger that just runs at players and takes them on and scores goals? And then Simon Adingra's come in and done exactly the same thing. He had a great preseason, but the question was, can he take that into the league? And he scores a goal on the opening day, which sets his confidence sky high, and has been a shoe-in for that right-hand side ever since, I think, and is probably one of the first names on the team sheet for Roberto De Zerbi. He's very dangerous. And for Ansu Fati, deadline day comes around, the rumours a couple of days before Brighton have signed Ansu Fati on loan from Barcelona. We're like, no chance. Not a chance in hell. And then when a couple of days later, this is a funny story, actually. We were at the Europa League draw party. So we were at the Amex watching the draw happen on the big screen. And after the draw was made, Paul Barber, our CEO, comes on the screen and has like a Zoom call with everyone in the room. And he goes, I probably shouldn't say this because it's not confirmed yet, but we've signed him. And then we're like, everyone's going absolutely insane. Like, how have we signed Ansu Fati, the player who took Lionel Messi's number 10 shirt and was dubbed, a couple of years ago as the next best thing alongside Vinny Jr., etc. And now he's at our football club. and he's been a joy to watch. He took a little bit of time to get back the confidence that he was clearly lacking at Barcelona over the last season or so. But the same player is still in there. The goals he scored, the link-up play, especially the partnership with Adingra, who obviously we've just spoken about. Those partnerships are starting to form, and when they start to form, I'm really excited to see what happens for us. And for João Pedro to be, I think, one of the top scorers in the Europa League. A few of those penalties, absolutely, but you still got to put them away. He's been really important for us, and £30 million looks to be well spent, as you say. So we're just hoping these guys can stay red hot throughout the whole season. But they've got a lot of competition, as we've already pointed out. So I'm sure they will.
Definitely. I remember when watching Pedro at Watford when he got relegated. It was like, how is he still there? Like it was ridiculous. He spent the whole of last season in the Championship. It was absolutely bizarre to me. No one else picked him up. But
the hilarious thing is when we brought him in, I think Watford's season was pretty much done, or something like, or he wasn't playing because he was injured. So he came to the Amex a little bit early to be unveiled to the fans, and he came to the Amex whilst we were losing 5-0 to Everton. So that was like a welcome to the Amex, João Pedro. This is what you've got to deal with next season. That wasn't fun.
What a bizarre watch that was. I remember watching that. I was at Forest. I can't remember who
we was playing Southampton.
It was Southampton, weren't it? Yeah,
because we were like obviously ruining Everton winning that game.
Huddling around it. It was like, how is this happening? Like I've never. That was one of the few times that I really rate De Zerbi as a manager. But I was like, the whole world can see they flood in the middle. So why are you still trying to play through the middle? It was just so bizarre watching that. But on the without wanting to poke the bear, shall we say? Obviously, I know you've mentioned contentious refereeing decision. It seems everyone's had at least 5 this season going by the. So that's another debate for another time. But De Zerbi's comment about how he hates 80% of English refs is possibly one of my favourite comments from a referee, from a manager since Mourinho left the Prem. Like, I mean, but how are you slightly concerned about that? Obviously, I don't know if there's been any ramifications yet. I don't know if being fined or banned or anything like that. But surely that's
you can't get fined for just saying you hate refs because everyone hates refs.
You probably can.
I was
criticize anyone.
I was listening to a podcast earlier. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I listened to the Jack Mate Happy Hour podcast.
Yes, I do. Big fan.
He had Ian Holloway on, and Ian Holloway was just talking about the fact that one game he made 9 changes from his previous starting lineup, and he got fined 25 grand for it.
Blackpool won it.
Yeah, and if we're talking about people that are going to fine someone just for changing his team, if they're going to turn around and manager's going to turn around and say, I hate 80% of you, there will be ramifications.
I wonder, do you think the referees are arguing amongst themselves of which 20% he does like?
I'm sure there's been a list. Like this has been the topic of conversation in the international break for Brighton fans. Like, who does he hate and who does he like? And Anthony Taylor, who I believe is refereeing the game this weekend, is not one of them.
Well, did you see the decision he made in the Championship when he got demoted? I think it was Preston against. I can't remember who Preston are playing, but the penalty, you have to find it because the penalty is laughable. And you're like, and then he's been reinstated back into the Premier League. It's
an absolute shambles from top to bottom. It really is. Like the audio they release is even on the decisions they get right, the audio is a complete and utter mess. Like how these people were in charge of one of the best leagues in the world and the best sport in the world, and we've got all of this technology that's so incredible, automated offsides that was rejected by clubs and officials at the start of the season. How is that possible? Like, it works so well in the World Cup, and I just don't understand how it's so unbelievably incompetent. And like, we had one last weekend where the Sheffield United player sort of turned around, had his arm up like that, and it hit his arm. And it was like identical to one that was given against Lewis Dunk earlier in the season. You talk about consistency. I don't think that's a penalty, in my opinion, because it was so close to him. But if you're given the one for Lewis Dunk, you've got to give that one as well. It's just all over the place, and I don't think anyone can blame De Zerbi for saying he hates 80% of them because
I
he's not
definitely don't blame him. No, I mean,
I don't-
one example of that. I mean, the inconsistency. So we had it when we went to United. Rashford dives, wins a penalty. The very next game, when United had Arsenal, was it Havertz that went down with more contacts, but that got overturned? It was like, well, if you're giving that, you can't like. It's just an absolute
unreal
cluster.
Weirdly, Christian, I think against West Ham was like the least incidents with VAR all season we've had. So that was quite nice.
It should be. I mean, it was initially designed to be used every like 3 or 4 games. It wasn't designed to be used for every decision. It's ridiculous. But anyway, we are digressing, and we won't go the ground load. But looking ahead to the weekend, Joe, obviously Forest have had a sort of more stable start than last season. Even the table doesn't necessarily reflect that too much. What have you made of our sort of start and progress from last season?
Yeah, I mean, you guys gave us a really good game at the end of last season and took it to us. You were relentless. You held no prisoners, and you guys really needed those points. And it was a game where we came off the back of a really heartbreaking loss to Man United a few days before it at Wembley. I thought that game would be make or break for us. That we can bounce back from this, that we would get Europe. And then we lose 3-1, and it's like, oh my goodness me, what are we going to do now? And then I think a few weeks later, we lose heavily to Everton, and we have a couple of good wins in between that. So it was a really weird part of the season. And, you guys had such a powerful team, and the atmosphere at your place is incredible. I don't know if it's been the same this season, but certainly last season I heard lots of comments saying how good it was. And you're unbeaten at home this season. It's clearly a tough place to come. And I think you guys have the players in your squad to hurt any team on any given day. So it's going to be a really tough game for us, no doubt. So, I'm glad a team, we were where Forest was. We were possibly lower than where Forest were. Last season, you were probably shoo-ins to go down. Everyone was saying, Forest will go down, no problem. That's one relegation place sorted, but you prove them wrong. And then you stay up, and I would imagine stay up this season. You've done some great recruitment. I think, was it last season you brought in like 20 players or something ridiculous?
30. Let's give us credit. 30.
That's just insane. And everyone thought, can they get squad morale out of that? I questioned it. I can't lie, but it proved me wrong. And you've got some really good players, and you've got a really good squad. And the club were absolutely right not to sack Cooper.
Who do you kind of look at, Joe, as threats where you might have weaknesses? I know you talked about fullback being a bit of a particular weakness because you've got a lot of injuries. So I assume someone like an Anthony Elanga kind of puts the fear in Brighton fans for Saturday.
Yeah, I can't say I've watched you guys enough to pinpoint the players that could really cause us problems, comparing to how we play at the moment. But all I know is that you are a really good physical side that will hurt us if we're not careful. And set pieces, we're absolutely atrocious at defending.
So we're terrible.
Okay, thank God for that. Well, what a lovely game it's going to be on Saturday. I can't wait for it. What are we going for, lads? 8-8?
Yeah, just two teams who can't defend set pieces.
Requires a score from them. So I think we've scored 1 goal from a set piece all season, and we've conceded 7, which is the league worst and highest regarding for either side.
I'm sure we won't be far behind that. Trust me. Don't worry. It'll be a comedy fest with set pieces then on Saturday. So I look forward to it. But we've got players that can hurt you. You've got players that can hurt us, and your home form, you're unbeaten. What you would have liked a few of those games to have been wins, absolutely. But we're coming to a really tough place, and we're a bit shot for injuries at the moment. So now is your best chance to beat us, I think.
Let's hope so.
I certainly don't hope so.
Our next, I know. Just sorry, Christian. But our next 6 games could be very pivotal for our season. Really, we've got like yourselves, Everton next. We go to Fulham, Wolves, then Bournemouth and Tottenham come to the City Ground. So like we've got 4 home games to really like, and then 2 away games where against teams where we should be in and amongst.
At least you've got really winnable game at the end of that.
Yeah,
Spurs.
Definitely.
We'll see how
They've
that
got a lot of
goes,
injuries. I'm quite happy.
They do.
The haunting of Brennan Johnson is what I fear, but we'll see. But anyway, to wrap things up, score prediction for you for Saturday, Joe.
I was on another Forest podcast about an hour ago, and I said 2-1 to Brighton, and I think I've got to stick with that. So yeah,
you can't change. You can't flip flop.
2-1 Albion.
Nice. All right. Well, I hope you're wrong, obviously. But many thank you for coming on. So just to wrap up, obviously you're Albion Obsessed, am I right in saying?
Yeah, so the podcast is Albion Obsessed. We do post-match reaction. We do a couple of other little bits here and there. We get a few guests on as well. We've had, ex-players, ex-chairmans, etc. We've got a little documentary coming out soon as well, which was really fun to shoot, which I've been very lax on editing, so I best crack on with that. We filmed it in August and it's still not out. So, yeah, that's my bad. But, yeah, hopefully we'll be out soon. And, if you want any Albion content, come on.
A release for Christmas, Joe?
I hope before Christmas.
Get on Premiere Pro, son. But
I know.
Massive thank you for your time, Joe. And yeah, I don't know if you're going on Saturday, but I hope it's a top day regardless. Fingers crossed on the result, but we'll see. Anyway, boys listening, obviously we'll be back for our usual post-match review after the game, whether it's on Saturday or Sunday, we'll see. And up until then, come on, you Reds.
This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.